our weekly guest on Fridays for hour number 2 of the show, and that's senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, joining us. And his weekly segment is presented by Scott Lawn Yard, an official commercial site work partner of the Buffalo Bills. And Greg, good to have you. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving with your family. We are in for a game where player availability is going to be big, more for the 49ers than the Bills. And I guess we should start here because we still don't know the official availability of Brock Purdy, who has only been limited in practice this week and has not thrown much by all indications. First question to you. You got an opportunity to see Brandon Allen operate this offense in Green Bay last week, 199 yards. Did not win the game, obviously, had his share of struggles. Ball security was an issue. What did you see?
Well, I think, to me, Brownie, the larger question was not so much Allen. I didn't think Allen played poorly, given the fact that I think the last time he started a game was the last game, I believe, of the 2021 season, if memory serves me correctly. What I really noticed on tape was how limited the 49er offense was in terms of what they normally do. The formation variation was limited quite a bit. There was much less motion. It was clear that Kyle Shanahan had to really tone down a lot of the things we've come to expect from watching the 49ers offense, which, is a number of things that make it so difficult to defend, is the fact that they do so much with different players, where they line up, the movement before the snap. Much of that did not happen. Now, assuming, again, we don't know, we're not out there, but assuming Brandon Allen did take all the first team reps this week, my guess is, and of course this is also weather permitting, my guess is you would see a little more of what their normal offense looks like, but you certainly didn't see it last week against the Packers.
And what do you think that costs them in their ability to win that game? Certainly there were some things not that they didn't have on their menu, right? I mean, so they were trying to beat a Packers team on the road left-handed.
Right. And, I think the bottom line to me, and I've watched the 49ers for years, I'm sure a lot of people have, they've been a very good team. To me, they're a very schematic team. I don't view the Niners, I don't know what you guys think, I don't view the Niners as a team that's built on just great players. Now, we know McCaffrey, when healthy, is a great player, and we know that guys put up numbers, but I don't think that they're the kind of team where you, let's say, look at their skill players and go, wow, you just better stop that guy or else. It's not like they have a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, or to me, it's very schematic based. And the way that Kyle Shanahan creates throwing windows, creates in the run game, creates with motion, with movement. And if that gets, I don't want to say taken away, but minimized by your own choosing because of who you're playing at quarterback, I think that has a pretty significant impact on what they're going to look like.
You mentioned Christian McCaffrey. He's played in 3 games since returning from that bilateral Achilles tendonitis. I watched pretty much that whole game from last week, and he didn't look like the explosive, sudden Christian McCaffrey that we saw last year when he led the league in rushing. Maybe he's still getting back into game shape, Greg, but I was curious your thoughts on what he looks like, what he has looked like to you these 3 games he's returned.
I mean, that's been a big conversation. It's always hard for me to answer that because I think that for the most part, their O-line, and as I said, Brownie, I've watched every game. I don't think their O-line this year has played particularly well. And in fact, in that Packers game, which I'm sure you watched that game in particular, I thought that the Packers defense looked quicker, faster, more physical than the 49ers O-line. And that's been the case to me in a number of games this season. And, there were times where McCaffrey, and they tried to get him outside. And there were times when he cut up and there were just 3 Packers who seemingly were unblocked. So is he going to look exactly the same as he looked a year ago or when he's at his best? I would say the answer to that's no. But I don't look at him and go, oh my God, this guy, like, he shouldn't be out there. He doesn't look good. I think they really struggled blocking. They haven't had good quality play from guys that they would expect. I don't think the center has played as well this year. I don't think the left guard Aaron Banks has played as well this year. Obviously, Trent Williams didn't even play last week. I don't know what his status is this week.
Yeah, he hasn't practiced at all, and neither has the left guard Banks, who's in concussion protocol. So,
yeah, if they're going to come in there like that, Greg, and what will they see in a Buffalo defense, and how would you know what I'm saying? How do they mesh? What are the Niners going to use to beat the Bills' defense?
Oh, that's a great question, Stephen. If I knew the answer exactly to that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys.
That's right, you wouldn't.
I'd be getting a big salary coaching in the NFL.
Right. But that's the question, right? I mean, being as how they may be, if Purdy doesn't go and they're going to be the same left-handed group, kind of limited, maybe a little less limited, but still, what do they see in the Bills' defense that they're going to have to attack?
I always look at the Bills defense, and obviously you guys are there, but I mean, I watch the tape every week. I've watched it for years, as you know. I always look at the Bills defense as a defense that's really fundamentally sound. They're not one of those exotic pressure defenses, although there's some blitz schemes here and there that Sean McDermott, will whip out, but you wouldn't say that they're, one of those heavy blitz defenses. I think on the back end, they play a lot of too high structure. They play some man, but they're not one of those get-in-your-face press all over the field. They're just a fundamentally sound defense with players that understand their roles, understand what they're asked to do. You have to beat them with execution. To me, you rarely beat them because they screw up. I mean, everybody screws up once in a while, but you rarely beat them because they screw up. Wouldn't you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that's
right.
Pretty much on the money.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of feel like, and Kyle Shanahan's not normally like this, but I almost feel like there's going to have to be some kind of, and I hate this word, but, trickery. Obviously, you don't do that on 20 snaps, but there's going to have to be something, Steve, that tries to create some explosiveness in their offense. Because I think it's going to be hard for them to just line up and methodically play what we normally consider to be 49ers football, especially with all these people out.
We actually saw them do that last week against Green Bay with that halfback toss-back double flea flicker option pass thing.
And it ended up being basically just a tunnel screen to Samuel, which they probably could have gotten to without doing all of that.
Right.
The Fred Warner, first of all, after the game last week, he called the performance embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the numbers, according to Next Gen Stats, they had 21 missed tackles in the game against the Packers. Do you attribute that more to the Packers ball carriers? I mean, Josh Jacobs is a fantastic contact balance back. We know that. So how much do you chalk up to the talent of the Packers forcing missed tackles to maybe the Niners having a bad day defensively, because they're among the league leaders in missed tackle percentage?
Yeah, I always think that's a combination, Brownie, because, obviously when a guy like Josh Jacobs gets to the third level of the defense, and I think it happened early in the game where Jair Brown, the safety, then, quote unquote, misses a tackle. Do we say that that's a missed tackle? If you're the defensive coaches, you say so. But on the other hand, you have a pretty good back who makes guys miss tackles in space. So I always think that's a combination. But I will say this, to play off your larger point, they had 42 rushes last week, the Packers. I can't recall when a team ever had 42 rushes recently against the San Francisco 49ers. So, I mean, the fact that I think in the first half alone, Wilson and Jacobs obviously predominantly, they combined, I think, for 22 for 120 in the first half alone. When do you see that? So, I think that, this is a defense overall, and they were physically beaten. I mean, you can talk about missed tackles. Obviously, coaches want to correct that, no question. You guys have been doing this a long time. You know that. But they were physically manhandled at the point of attack in that game.
And that's why you got to think the Bills are going to come out and at least say, hey, did you fix it? Right? I mean, they're the Bills.
Oh, sure.
And how much, and that 49ers, you always say, wow, the 49ers had a great game. I think their game plan changed within that game. As they saw they were having that success running the ball, they didn't plan on running it 40-plus times.
No.
But oh man, did that plan change when they started having success? And that's kind of what the Bills are up against as well. They're gonna test it right out of the gate, correct?
Yeah, and as you know, Steve and Brownie, you've been doing this a long time too. sometimes when teams get really beaten badly in one area, they do come out the next week and they get that relatively fixed. I'm not saying they're going to shut the Bills' run game down,
That is
but
right.
they're going to work on that hard this week. It's going to be hard coaching. It's not going to be a lot of singing Kumbaya this week. It's going to be hard coaching. They'll probably be better. Whatever that means, we don't know the answer to that. But I agree with you, Steve. First of all, we know the Bills want to run the ball anyway. It's not as if they don't want to run the ball.
Right, and I'm with you. It was true back before I played and during my career, and it's been true since. A team can stink at some aspect of the game one week and come out and absolutely nail it the next week.
Correct.
Because they work on it. They're pros. And
Yeah.
with a little bit of adjustment, a different mindset, all of a sudden, they play that aspect of the game 100% better.
And they have veterans like you just mentioned, Brownie, Fred Warner. He's a veteran leader type. That all this week it's business, serious business. You need players, Steve, you can speak to this better than I, clearly, but you need players who then the coaches can coach and they can coach hard, but you need players to really take charge of that. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, and having veterans in the room who will not tolerate guys playing like that again.
Right.
It's a message, and they're guys that players love and respect. They want to join them, so they are going to up their game. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So, Greg, red zone on both sides of the ball has been somewhat of a problem for this Niners team. I was stunned to see what their red zone defense is like. You're a top 10 defense in terms of total defense. You do pretty good in a lot of these other categories against the run and the pass. They're top 10. And in the red zone, what is going on there? Why can they not keep people out of the end zone? It is uncommonly low ranking for the 49ers defense in the red area.
Yeah, and it's true on offense as well. I mean, that's been an area where they've been really bad on both sides. And that's, again, that is such a critical area in this league. To me, red zone defense is you almost have to look at all the plays, and I certainly haven't looked at them all in one stretch, but there's a lot of different reasons, because sometimes you get beat because teams are really good scheming against you in the red zone. Sometimes you get beat because you get physically beaten in the run game. Sometimes you get beat like we just saw, a fade ball. So there's a number of reasons, but I don't think the Niners this year, and the offense, I think it holds true as well. I don't think this year they've been as physically imposing a team. I think one of the things about the Niners, everybody always talks about Kyle Shanahan and how well he schemes things, but I always felt that the Niners were a physical football team first and foremost, that it all started there. And you really see that on offense, and maybe it's a McCaffrey thing. I know, Mason obviously put up good numbers, but I always felt like when they got in the red zone, particularly last year, that they gave the ball to McCaffrey, and he scored. And this year, that's not, obviously he's only played 3 games, but, from a run game perspective in the red zone, they have not been able to score. And you know how it is. You start getting tighter because their pass game is built more on scheme than it is on just individual players. Then it becomes harder to scheme because there's so much less space.
Right.
And the real thing when you get down there, if you can run the ball, the other team's defenseless anyway, because you don't even put the ball at risk. So, you turn around, you hand it, and that's why the Bills have been notoriously pretty good in the red zone, because Josh is always a threat, and he can run the ball.
Brownie, you mentioned last week
Yeah.
about Cook in the red zone. I mean, sometimes Cook looks like a different back in the red zone just in terms of his physicality,
Right.
But and again, the O-line's a factor as well. I don't want to just shortchange the O-line because this O-line's been, pretty darn good in the run game this year. But yeah, you guys know if you can score touchdowns running the ball in the red zone, particularly in the low red zone, the 10 yards in, that is such a huge advantage.
Yeah, and the Bills have done a great job of that. We actually had Osiris Torrance here in studio with us earlier this week, and I was asking him what is going on down there, because, Josh was usually the guy, taking it over the line, and now you got a guy 7 yards deep in the backfield doing it just as well, if not better. And he just said, we're moving people. We just feel like we're successfully moving people and winning at the line of scrimmage. And I would say their consistency down there has been probably the best we've seen, maybe in the McDermott era.
Yeah, and sometimes it's as simple as that, as you guys know. Sometimes it's just being more physical than the other team. There's, football, for all the talk with the pass game and all that. And by the way, more and more teams this year in the league are playing a higher percentage of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. More and more teams this year are running the football. Everything is cyclical in the NFL. If you go back through the recent history and even further than that, the history of the league, everything is cyclical the way it happens. And teams are playing, like I said, more 12, more run game. It all goes in cycles.
So you got the Bills coming in. The Bills are getting healthier. They just got off. They're coming off their bye week. They've got the 6th, 4th, or 5th easiest schedule remaining of the 6 games they have left. The winning percentage is like 4.32 or something like that. And they've got a chance in a year where they were supposed to be rebuilding to clinch the division earlier than any team in the league.
They got to be careful, Steve, in my opinion. I'm not in their locker room. You guys are in the building.
Yep.
But just, watching sports for 100 years like we all have, I think they got to be a little careful because they could clinch the division. Did they clinch the division if they win Sunday night?
Yes. It's clinched if they win.
They got to be careful because, it's easy at that point to just, it's just human nature. I mean? Because obviously they're still going to be fighting for the number 1 overall seed, but it's just human nature. They got to just, they can't take the pedal off the metal, as it were. They got to keep pushing because you just, maybe they give a guy a rest here and there, but they can't act like the season is now done for 6 weeks.
Yeah. We're on Milano watch here, Greg, because he practiced fully this week.
That's great.
He's still on IR. He's going to be listed as questionable, and they have to make a decision by tomorrow at 4 as to whether to put him on the 53-man roster to play on Sunday night. And just so you know, Coach McDermott said, if he does play, it's probably going to be on a pitch count. But sure. 58 looks like he's going to be back sooner rather than later.
Well, he's probably chomping at the bit, knowing the kid. He probably is in McDermott's ear every 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been working hard. It's been 13 months since he took a snap. And remember, he lost his last season because of a broken leg. And by all accounts, this extra time off because of the pec injury or the bicep injury has really allowed him to get his wheels back to where they were pre-injury. And I think it's been, in that way, a benefit to him.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, you could make the argument, a healthy Milano playing the way we know Milano could play, which is not going to happen the first game he plays, obviously. But Milano and Bernard as your nickel linebackers, that's a pretty darn good duo, don't you think?
Yeah, especially when you have Taron Johnson lined up next to them.
Yeah. So it's a tough deal for Dorian Williams, who I actually think's played reasonably well this year. I think he's improved significantly from his rookie season.
I would agree with that.
I would agree with that as well.
Reading it better, reacting to it faster. He has been solid. He has been their leading tackler, I think, in more than half of their games this season. He gets to the ball in a hurry.
He sure does.
Greg, enjoy this one. We'll see who San Francisco actually puts on the field, which may have an impact on it. And I'm sure you'll enjoy seeing the snow fly. There is snow in the forecast.
Is it supposed to snow during the game?
So it's supposed to be heavier pregame, but there should still be snow during the game. There is a chance that it will taper off completely by the second half, definitely by the end of the game. But there is supposed to be snow during portions of the game.
Okay. Well, these Sunday night games are tough for me, guys. I'm
Listen, I'm right with you. I am right with you.
I'm a senior now, unfortunately. I got to get my rest.
Believe me, I'm way ahead of you. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Greg. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Thank you.